What is going on, Die Hard and Hardettes? I probably should have put a little more thought into what we would call the 2% feminine population that watches this show. How is everybody doing? Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA Podcast. I am your host, as always, your guy, Clint. And today's a very special episode. It's an extra spicy meatball. No, not just because it is a big pay-per-view week. No, not just because we got another winning week in the books. And no, not because it's the pound-for-pound king versus the pound-for-pound number one challenger. It's the 200th episode of the Die Hard MMA Podcast, and it is our anniversary today, everybody. I just wanted to let you all know, set the tone right now, that I am nothing but grateful. It has been 4 years. I started this podcast on February 6th, 2019, and it has just been off to the races ever since. The whole goal of the show was to have some fun, talk about my favorite sport in the world, and maybe gamble a little bit. And I never could have predicted where this thing would take me from that point to being one of the most notable names now in the MMA betting community, one of the biggest shows that you guys all watch, and the love and the support of you guys week in and week out. I can't believe how far it's come, and I just want to let you know how grateful I am. This has been absolutely awesome. So cheers to you guys. Cheers to all the love and support, and we're going to keep this damn show rolling and doing exactly what we've been doing. We're going to keep growing the community, and hell, we're going to patch up and turn around the ROI as far as the betting shit goes in the next couple of months here too. So it's all up from here, baby. Again, just so much gratitude and love. Thank you guys for everything. I'm going to go ahead and welcome in the chat. We have got none other than Grateful Dude. What's going on, my guy? Mushroom in the house. The man himself, Will Martin, wishing me a happy podcast birthday. One of the OGs, one of the very first people I ever listened to, Will Martin. So that means a ton for you to come and show up and watch again, man. I very much appreciate it. Glenbot in the house. Gus, how's everybody doing? Folks, it is big time pay-per-view week, UFC 284. Do me a favor and smash the hell out of the like button. We don't have any football to compete with us this evening. Let's get those rookie numbers back up where they need to be. Smash the like button for me. Let's get some swell here. Let's get some people in here. And I brought in the big guns, the big kahuna. It's pay-per-view fight week, and that means we need to have an expert opinion on here. No, I'm absolutely not talking about myself. None other than Bets and Picks MMA, Mr. Andrew Gombas himself. Andrew, how you doing today, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great. First of all, congrats on 200. That's a great accomplishment. Very honored that I'm the guest on the 200th episode, and hopefully the next 200 are as good as the first 200 were.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I couldn't have planned it any better. I wanted to have somebody fun. I wanted to have somebody awesome. And when I did the math and I was like, oh, shit, episode 200 just happens to be on UFC 284 Fight Week, I was like, we're going big. We're doing a good guest. We're doing a good show. And I'm pumped. So thank you very much for being here. As always, you know, as the people know, I've never claimed to be the best sports gambler under the sun. I'm the entertainment guy, and you are one of the sharpest minds in the industry. So we always appreciate when you'll take a break and come over here and rub elbows with us and give us some tips and some reads. How'd you do last week?
Dude, I got killed last week, so I'm ready to make some back today. I had Kinoshita at -210. It closed like -350, and he got finished by Fugit. I had Spivak, which is good, and then I had Ivanov, which was a tough loss. So I'm back at it this week as always. I try not to focus too much on one week, whether it's too good or too bad. Just trying to chug along and consistently make some profit over time.
For sure, man. That is absolutely the move. It makes me feel a little better that I wasn't alone on Blogoy this week because I thought he was super live in that spot. And frankly, man, the bookies, I think, agreed with us that he had won the first couple rounds. I think he was over minus 200 live going into the third on DK, I saw.
I went to sleep before that fight, so I couldn't tell you. I woke up, checked my phone, saw people were arguing about the decision, and I was like, God damn. But what can you do? You know, all we can do is make the reads, try to get the best number we can, and let them handle the rest.
It's very true. It's very true. And you would know all about getting the best number. My guy. All right, everybody, we are going to go ahead and get the ball rolling. We got 35 live viewers already rocking with us. So again, please smash that like button. We appreciate you all. And I made sure I have all the slides primed and ready to go this week. There will be no foul ups. Here we go. The first fight of the evening is none other than Zubaira Tukhugov taking on UFC newcomer Elves Brenner. Now, Zubaira Tukhugov, he's a guy that I'm not exactly sure what to make of. He's one of these Russian grinder types. He's got good, solid wrestling. He's got decent boxing, decent pop on his punches, but his gas tank is kind of bad. He seems to really wear down and slow down over the course of his fights, and it always forces him into fighting very closely with his competition, whether that's fighting up or fighting down. He just seems to always fight close with whoever he's competing in there with. He's got 4 split decisions in the UFC. So not a guy I'm super interested in laying this kind of chalk on. Elves Brenner, 13-3. He's a short notice fill-in. Comes out of shoot the box. So training out of a real good camp, a real good team. He's your classic shoot the box fighter, very aggressive, throws everything with intent. He's got a hard body kick that I like, a good strong blast double. I'm not sure how well that's going to work for him here in this particular fight, but he punches his way into takedowns, and he's a good positional top pressure type of wrestler when he gets on top of people. Consistent ground and pound. You do not want this guy on top of you. I actually think Brenner could do some damage to some people that are, mid or low tier in the UFC. I just think this is a rough first matchup for him. His record, man, it looks good, but it's one of these Brazilian padded records. It looks like you go back and look at some of his opposition. Like the last 2 guys he beat before he got this short notice call were 3-1 and 7-5. So I've got questions about just how good Elvis is. So I'm going to pick Zubaira Tukhugov. I wouldn't be shocked if he lands a big bomb and knocks this kid out on short notice. But I also would not be surprised at all if he went to a split decision and maybe even let this one slip away, because that's just what Zuby seems to do. Andrew, what do you feel about this fight? How are you approaching it?
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it. I'm picking Zubaira as well. Not a spot I would ever confidently lay minus 500 in. I actually really like the initial matchup for this card, which was supposed to be Zubaira versus Joel Alvarez. So hopefully that fight gets made down the line. I don't know what to make of Zubaira up at 155 pounds. I tend to think in this spot he should be okay, but I think as he moves up in the ranks at this weight class, I don't think it's going to go well for him. I actually don't even think he was that big of a 145 pounder. It just seemed that he lacked a little bit of, I don't want to say discipline because I don't know him personally or know what's going on inside of his camp, but I think if he dieted properly and was disciplined to the core, that he would make 145. So hopefully after this fight we could get the Alvarez fight made or something of that sort. But yeah, I think Zubaira should be a big favorite in this spot, and I am picking him to win.
Okay. Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. And I did love that initial matchup. I'm just bummed because I'm an Alvarez fan, period. Like, I just want to see that guy in the cage more often. And it's a bummer that keeps being taken away from us. So hopefully they find a way to rebook that matchup at some point down the road, or at least maybe get him back in against somebody else quicker, because I definitely need some more Alvarez in my life.
Me too.
And real quick, man, interesting comments on Zubaira Tuhuggov's future up at 155, because I agree with you. Like, we'll find out if maybe he's got better pace and cardio at 155. Maybe that does wonders for him because he's not cutting all that weight and he can keep a high pace going a little bit stronger and faster. But I'm guarded, man. I don't have high hopes that that's going to be the case. I feel like it might be the same old Zubaira Tukhugov, and maybe he can't move that extra muscle around, might even gas out quicker. Some people move up and it doesn't do a whole lot for them when they change weight classes.
Yeah, if you're fighting bigger guys, it takes a little bit more energy to move them around. But then again, if it's a bad weight cut, that could screw your cardio up too. So it's going to be interesting to see.
It's true. You just never know which way it's going to go until we get in there. All right, everybody. We got a 13 fight card to get through, so let's keep it moving. Next fight up, we've got Blake Bilder taking on Shane Young. I'm not sure why I thought it was Blender, but for some reason I had that name messed up there. You've got Blake making his UFC debut coming off the Dana White's Contender Series, taking on Shane Young, one of City Kickboxing's fighters here. And I actually like what I see from Blake, man. He's 7-0-1, making his UFC debut. He also has a 7-fight amateur record, which anytime these guys have kind of low experience, and I look at that amateur run, and it's a good, solid amateur run with a lot of fights, I feel like that goes a long way to making me feel a little better about backing them as far as having the ring time they need and stuff like that in there. He does start a little bit slow, throw some naked leg kicks, which isn't always great. He can get countered on those. But he does have pretty good side-to-side footwork. He's got decent range control. He's got big power in that right hand, man. So when he does decide to sit down on that thing, he does tend to throw kind of one-at-a-time pot shots, big winging hooks. He can get a little disrespectful of his opponent, step like right in front of them and not really use too much head movement to get out of the way or anything like that. The one thing that I really just absolutely love about his game is his back takes. This kid's back takes are slick, and he is always hunting the back. But you never quite see it coming because his offensive wrestling pressure is pretty solid, and the big power bombs kind of don't have you thinking about the grappling. And then he surprises people by just suddenly ending up on their back. He just got promoted to a BJJ black belt. I kind of like this kid, man. He pours it on in rounds 2 and 3. Even if he starts a little slow, he gets stronger the longer the fight goes. I like that. Shane Young, 13-6. 2-3 in the UFC, and his only 2 wins in the UFC were Ronaldo D and Austin Arnett, neither of whom are with the organization anymore. Now, he made his UFC debut against Volk, so hard to knock the kid for losing to Volkanovski. That's a tough UFC debut if I have ever seen one, but he went over to train with Volkanovski after taking that loss. He's got good measured side-to-side movement. He chips away at his opponents with low kicks. He kind of just pushes his way into the clinch when he wants to grapple, but man, his hands are low. He eats a bunch of shots every single fight. He does seem to be relatively durable, but also doesn't fight really well moving backwards. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here in this fight, but he's only got a 56% takedown defense. Andrew, I think I'm dog hunting early, man. I think I like Blake here in this spot. I think Blake will be able to move Shane Young backwards. That's just the way that he fights. And then the way that he takes people's backs. I've seen Shane taken down. He gives his back up almost immediately. And I think that's going to be a real bad spot with Bilder on him. Now, he may not get the submission, but even if he just backpacks him for 2-3 minutes in a round, I think that'll be enough for him to bank some control time and win this fight. I think I like the dog here in this spot. What about you?
Yeah, honestly, this fight is probably one of the ones I have the worst reads on. I watched the tape, I did the research, and I just couldn't really get a great read on it. On the one hand, I feel like you got Shane Young, who I feel like showed some promise a little bit earlier in his career, and just the performance against Morales particularly was concerning. And then on the flip side, you have Bilder, who looked pretty good against regional competition, but this is a step up. If you think about it in the sense that Young would probably look good against regional competition too. It just makes it's hard for me to read. I do agree with you. I like Bilder's back takes. I think Young's probably a little bit better of a striker. So I'm fine passing this one and watching from the sidelines. But yeah, it's a good fight for Bilder's debut. It's not like Shane Young's debut and he was getting Volkanovski.
Yeah, that is a big step down from Alexander Volkanovski, man. I'm with you there. No knock on passing on this one. It's definitely a good note-taking fight. And man, generally I look to fade these guys coming off the Contender Series. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit different for me, but he is the underdog in this spot. And I think that makes a difference for me. I feel much more comfortable betting a prospect coming in as an underdog in the UFC rather than laying that chalk on them right away, paying that premium once they get here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I very rarely bet on guys coming off the Contender Series. Did it last week and got burned. So I'm not. There is no one size fits all. But I feel more often than not the market has been overpricing debutants in the past. But yeah, I just that Kinoshita bet. Like I said, I got a good number, beat the closing line by over $1, and he just ended up getting hurt bad and finished on the mat. So you never really know what you're getting with these guys coming off the Contender Series unless they've fought that UFC level competition or something comparable to it. Because you get some of these guys coming off the Contender Series where they're like 4-0, and that's not the case in this spot. Like, he comes from a respectable organization in CFFC, but it was sometimes, like, we're going to talk about it later in the card. There's a guy fighting who's like 20 years old who only has like a handful of pro fights, and it's harder to gauge from that standpoint. And I think more often than not, you're right that the market overvalues debutants. I just don't know in this spot.
Absolutely. No, I totally hear you. And man, that's my one regret for last week. I squeezed out 0.14 units of profit last week between Bellator and UFC, but my one single regret is that I didn't stick to my guns and actually pull the trigger on Fugit, because I felt like that line was just getting out of control on exactly the spot, man. The Dana White Contender Series fade, where a 22-year-old kid is making his debut. Moment might just be too big, and I chickened out. So I got the under, though. I got the under. I'll take that. That'll be enough for me.
Yeah, it's crazy because when I was watching that fight, I felt really good about the bet. I was like, he's way faster. He hit him with a head kick that
I thought it was over.
Yeah, couldn't believe
I thought it was over as soon as that head kick landed.
Same. And then when they were on the fence, Fugit was trying to take him down. He was working really hard to do it, and he couldn't. And then Kinoshita disengaged from the fence, and I saw the look on on Fugit's face, and he looked like he was gassing. I was like, perfect. This is going to be smooth sailing from here on out. He throws a naked leg kick, gets clipped. Like, that's just the name of the game. People, when you're betting MMA or anything, really, you're just getting one iteration of a fight, when in reality you need to try to picture what would happen if they fought 10,000 times or 100,000 times, which is really, really difficult to do. And I'm not trying to say I made some kind of amazing bet on Kinoshita or anything, but it's just it's a great example of why you should always use good bankroll management, because you never really know, like, what exact outcome you're going to get that time. All you can do is try to beat the implied odds. So if someone's 70% and you think they're 75 or 80%, you have to bet it in that spot, knowing you're still going to lose it every 25 or 30 out of 100 times. So just moral of that rant was just to be disciplined with your money management and not to overreact to one iteration of a fight.
Dude, I want to say thank you. I'm glad that you said that, because you said it very eloquently. And I like to think that my chat is pretty educated these days when it comes to betting. But you always grab somebody new. You always get a new viewer. You always get somebody, it's their first time searching for UFC betting and stuff. And that's information that people need. And honestly, I just haven't said it enough lately. Bankroll management is extremely important. And people don't like to think in terms of the range of outcomes, but that's how real solid professional gamblers actually do it. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for specifying it. It needed to be said. Let's move on, though. The next fight that we are going to go ahead and talk about here is Loma Lookboonmee. She is taking on none other than Elise Reed. And man, Andrew, I got roasted, absolutely roasted, for the opinion that Elise Reed is just not as bad as people think she is. Everyone mocked me relentlessly for that. Your boy's betting 1,000. I have picked every single Elise Reed fight correctly, and I believe I've bet on every single one of them since she's been in the UFC. So, like, I just have a real damn good read on this girl. And when you get cash cow fighters like that, it's so rare. You got to take advantage when you can. But I love the skill set of Elise Reed. I know exactly what I'm getting from her. She's 6-2. She's a solid striker. She's got fast hands. She's got some decent pop. You know, when she lands some of those big punches and sits down, she's got some decent zip for this weight class. Not a lot of people have knockout power at this low women's weight class, but I mean, she clubbed her girl in the last fight and dropped Martinez, I think, in the first round. That was a nice showing from her. Good lateral movement. She stays nice and loose, and she glides out of range of some of these fights. Good clinch striking, good solid knees. The problem is, Andrew, she doesn't grapple. She has no idea how to grapple. Zero clue how to fight for underhooks. Zero clue how to defend herself positionally on the cage. She has no takedown defense. I mean, she's going to have a 2-inch height and reach advantage here in this spot. But Loma Lookboonmee, I mean, she's like a 9-time Muay Thai champion. She trains out of Tiger Muay Thai, which is one of the best MMA gyms in the world. I think Bangtao Muay Thai is the name that it goes under these days, so I probably should be more correct in specifying where she's training. But man, I freaking love Loma Lookboonmee. She's a high caliber Muay Thai striker, incredibly powerful and explosive hips, whether that's for takedown defense or just snapping those head kicks up there and the the snappy leg kicks she throws out there. Her hips are very, very impressive. Her timing is impeccable. She's always blitzing in combinations, 2, 3, 4, 5 strikes at a time. She's got really powerful clinch strikes, and she knows exactly what she's doing in the clinch, Andrew. She's got good trips, good dumps. She actually has worked on her wrestling and her submission game quite a lot. Her ground and pound is nasty. The elbows when she gets on top of somebody are just straight up brutal. She has a 77% takedown defense herself, and while having a 58% striking accuracy, she owns a 53% striking defense, which is really impressive because most of the time those numbers line out to be about 100%. Usually, if you're more accurate striking, you're lacking on the defense. The reverse is also true. Now, she's one of those fighters that is up over 110% with those combined ratios there. So, very talented fighter here in Loma Lookboonmee. The one knock that I've got on her is she's a natural atom weight. She should be a 105er, but the UFC doesn't have a 105 weight class, so she's got to work at 115, and she's bulked up, man. You see her last couple fights, you can see her kind of swelling a little bit. So I think she's putting on some size. She's putting on some muscle. I think this is a spot where it's Loma Lookboonmee all day. I do think Elise Reed can strike with her on the feet. I do think that they'll be competitive. She doesn't hit hard enough to make Loma Lookboonmee run for the hills. She doesn't hit hard enough to knock out Loma Lookboonmee clean on the feet. And if Loma approaches this thing intelligently, which her last couple fights suggest that she probably will, if she goes for some of those dump trip takedowns, this is easy pickings. The other thing is, Elise Reed doesn't check leg kicks. Loma's going to have a field day beating the hell out of her legs. This is a favorite that I like early on. It's one-way traffic, Loma Lookboonmee for me. What about you, man?
Yeah, so I'm with you in the sense that I've actually done a good job of betting on Elise Reed fights up to this point as well. I was huge on Eubanks. I was like, Eubanks inside the distance, round one, money line. I passed the McKenna fight, but then I bet Hughes against Reed. And then
Sam Page,
Reed.
Baby.
Yeah, then I bet Hughes against Reed, and then I bet Reed against Martinez. So I'm 3 for 3 on Elise Reed fights. And yeah, I think this is a tough one for her. Loma should have her covered here. She's the better technical striker. She's really good in the clinch. I think she could get takedowns in top time here as well if she wants it. The only on the flip side, I'll make the counter argument for devil's advocate is it's not like Loma is much of a finisher. She's a little bit smaller, so you're paying a lot of chalk in what's likely going to be a decision. I do think in this case, though, that she does win this fight a lot of the time. I think obviously MMA math doesn't work perfectly, but you can take a look at the Hughes fight. They each fought Sam Hughes as a benchmark. And yeah, I mean, other than size, I think that Loma is pretty much better everywhere here.
Completely agree with you, man. I'm glad we're on the same side here. It's rough to lay that kind of a price tag in a women's MMA fight, especially with the current staging the way that it is. It's hard to chalk up and take somebody that has that price tag when you know the judges are very likely involved. But man, I think she's going to make the decision relatively easy. Like I feel like if anybody's going to be getting hurt, it's going to be the legs of Elise Reed. It's going to be the clinch control of Loma Lookboonmee. Like I think this is one where we can probably use her as a parlay piece if that's the way that you want to go. If you want to bring the price down and go Loma Lookboonmee by decision, that's probably not a bad look either. I wouldn't, however, rule out a finish just because of the way her ground and pound is. She can cut to mount and she can bust people up with elbows if she gets there. Elise Reed has proven that she's got absolutely no ability to get out of bad positions grappling. So there's always that chance. Personally, I'd be leaning more towards parlay just to avoid picking a method of victory, but I'm going to guess more than likely it's going to be decision.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody, thank you all so much again for hanging out with us. We've got my guy, Bets and Picks MMA, Andrew Gombos, breaking down UFC 284 right here on Pub Sports Radio. These lines are presented to you by Superbook Sports, and we've got 88 live viewers. Do us a favor, make sure you smash that like button for me. And the next fight we are going to talk about is Jack Jenkins taking on Shainis. Now, this is a fight where I'm extremely interested in both these guys. I do not have a great read on either of them. I don't know a lot about either of these guys. You know, historically speaking, you've got Jack Jenkins, who is 10-2, another Dana White's Contender Series debutant, and he is coming in here against Shainis, 12-4, who won on Dana White looking for a fight and then made his UFC debut against Sadiq Youssef. And man, that was the one where I don't know what it was, Andrew. I had like a weird feeling about it. And I was just like, don't parlay Sadiq Youssef. Like this one could end up being close. It could be tight. It could be competitive. No. He snatched the neck in the first 15 seconds of the fight, and it was over. So Don Shainis did not have a very good showing in his UFC debut, but he's very physically strong. He's got decent offensive wrestling and just a terrible level of competition. Really, the way Don Shainis can win fights is by making it a wrestling slog. It's got to be grinding. It's got to be dirty. He's got to be able to kind of physically overmatch and overpower his opponents and take them down. He's got good, solid ground and pound if he does get the fight down to the floor. But Jack Jenkins, this guy, I love the way he targets the body. He had a very measured performance on his UFC Dana White's Contender Series fight. His opponent was a decent grappler, and he kind of slowed it down. It reminded me a little bit of Chris Curtis, where he kept his hips back and kept his hands low, and he just ripped at his opponent's body while defending those takedowns, making sure to avoid the problem area. He also has some really big clinch knees. He fired a couple of those off when his opponents shot in. Very good, intelligent sprawl to keep the fight where he wants it, and a really active jab. He also has good level changes of his own. I'm not sure he's necessarily going to be using those in this particular fight, but he does have 2 losses on his record. Both those are by sub. So it kind of lends me to wonder a little bit about his grappling game and grappling defense. There's a chance Don Shainis might be able to get some wrestling off here in this one. Jack Jenkins will have a 1-inch height and reach advantage, and we're looking at a minus 320 on Jenkins versus the plus 265 of Don Shainis. I don't want to lay that price tag, Andrew. I'm not sure I want to take the dog either, but I definitely don't want to lay that favorites price tag. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, so it's very, very rare that I'll lay chalk on the Contender Series, but when Jack Jenkins was fighting, I watched the tape on him. I did all my research, and I was like, man, this guy's ready. So I was saying before that fight, not only is he going to win tonight, but I think he's ready for the UFC right now. Like, out of everyone who's fighting tonight, I think he's going to get a contract. I think he's going to do well in the UFC. Sure enough, he had a good performance on Contenders. He had a guy who just would not stop coming at him, was just go. I think he proved a lot in that fight. He dug deep. He showed wrestling, which in the past he was a boxer coming forward. I love the way he would rip to the body. And he showed that he is a very well-rounded skill set in that fight. And I think this is a good matchup for him. Shainis is he's a tough guy, but he's not physically imposing. I think he's kind of just outgunned here. So I'm picking Jenkins to get it done. I think this is a really good fight for him.
Okay. All right, man. I can't argue it, based on his last fight that we got to watch. Does feel like it pretty well sums up how this fight may possibly go as well. So you being that confidence definitely makes me feel a little bit better about the favorite. Definitely going to have to take a look at that one. I'm probably going to pass, though. I'm with you. I'm going to pick the favorite. I don't think I'm betting it. I don't think I've got the balls to bet it. I'll probably just take notes, but I will pick the favorite with you there. Shout out my guy here, Connor Mack, in the chat, one of Pub Sports Radio's personalities. You guys make sure you check out Connor's show. He's always doing golf and basketball and all kinds of bullshit that I can't get my brain around, but he's pretty damn good at it. Shout out my guy, Devesh right here, talking about Anshul Jubli. Congratulations on getting a guy from your country in the UFC and getting a win in his debut performance. Looked damn good too. Jubli, I kind of knocked him a little bit, Andrew. I wasn't expecting Jubli to look nearly as good as he did. He looked fantastic. So good for him. I'm excited to see what he looks like moving forward.
Me too.
Were you awake for that one?
Yeah, I was.
All right. Next up, everybody, we are talking about Jamie Mullarkey taking on Francisco Prado. Jamie Mullarkey, another one of the city kickboxing crew, coming in here, taking on UFC debutant Francisco Prado, who is 11-0, undefeated. Violent finisher is Francisco Prado. This guy, he's got that undefeated 11-0 record, but it's also an undefeated 100% finish rate. This man bites down on his mouthpiece and swings for the bleachers every single time. Likes the Muay Thai plum, big, powerful clinch knees. He's got a strong double leg, and man, when he doubles people, he slides straight on into side control. That's something that I don't think we see enough of, is a lot of these fighters, they'll settle for being right in the guard of their opponents and then slow the pace down, work from there. I know obviously on the regionals, he's going to have easier success than he will at the UFC level. But when guys dump people off to the side and don't get caught in half guard, they go straight to side control. Man, that's a big up as far as your grappling goes in my book. He also has a nasty submission game, good strong hips. He's got a Von Flue choke on his record, snatches arm bars from his back. I like this Prado kid. He's going to be fun. He's going to be entertaining, and that's for sure. Mullarkey, man, he's discount Volkanovski. I'm not sure I can really sum up his skill set any other way better than that. I mean, lots of feints, good strong boxing, mixes in the wrestling, throws that snappy head kick every once in a while. He just looks like the other CKB fighters. He's just not quite as good as Volk is. Man, 3 KO losses. Got dropped against Michael Johnson in round 1, but fought his way back into that fight. The thing I love most about Mullarkey, I think, is his heart and his inability to fuck off. Like, this guy just sticks around and will always go in there. You've got to really sever him from his consciousness to stop Jamie Mullarkey. And that kind of toughness, some people will not get around that. You'll be able to be carried in fights that maybe you shouldn't otherwise win because you've got that ability to just hang in there when other people wouldn't. You're very legit if you beat Jamie Mullarkey in my book. I think he's very much a good range-finding gatekeeper type of fighter. I don't expect him to be in the top 5 ever, but you are legit if you get by this man. Minus 255 for Jamie Mullarkey, plus 215 for Francisco Prado. I could make some arguments for Prado, I'm sure, especially with the way he finishes. I'm going to pick Jamie Mullarkey on this one, Andrew, and I think I'm going to keep an eye out for the totals. I'm probably going to bet violence in this fight. I expect one way or another one of these guys is getting finished. I don't have a number for you right now, obviously, but once I get access to something, I expect that to be on my card. What's your look on this fight?
Yeah, you nailed it. On one hand, it's like Jamie Mullarkey is a guy who, in the past, I've loved to back him as an underdog, but just not the kind of guy I want to lay minus 250 on against pretty much anyone. He just doesn't have the physical tools to separate himself enough to where it makes sense to be laying that kind of chalk on him, in my opinion. His opponent, obviously, I mentioned prior in the show, he's 20 years old. He's all finishes. He's very powerful. He's strong. And something always is worth taking into consideration when analyzing these young fighters is they're getting better a lot of the time. There's not as you could make a big jump from 20 to 21 or a big jump from 19 to 20 more so than you could from 31 to 32. So it's definitely always something to keep an eye out for. But again, it's what I mentioned earlier in terms of that level of competition. He hasn't fought anyone that's nearly as good as Mullarkey. So I think you just have to pick Mullarkey in this spot. And I don't mind the violence. Look, I think Prado earlier, Mullarkey late. It's probably very live. I myself will be keeping an eye out for a live entry on Mullarkey.
I think that's probably a good move. Yeah, especially if he gets hurt or starts a little bit slow or something like that, he can fight his way back in it like we've seen it before. Use the wrestling, slow the pace of the fight down, get his opponent out of his element. I like that. Calling the early live bet look on Mullarkey is a good call, I think, man.
Thanks.
Good stuff. All right. So we're lining up here a little bit on these first couple of fights, and we broke the 100 mark, everybody. 117 live viewers. Thank you all for spending your Monday evening here with us on the Die Hard MMA podcast. The next fight up, we've got Kleydson Rodrigues taking on Shannon Ross. Another fight where we've got some questions about these fighters, man. We don't know exactly what we're getting into with some of these guys. Shannon Ross, interesting note for Shannon Ross is that he was a very popular fighter on Dana White's Contender Series when he made that fight. 13-6. Man, I had him parlayed. He was a minus 240 favorite that night, and he got absolutely melted. He went in there against Vinicius Salvador and took hell from that man in the first round. He dips his head. He throws a massive overhand right. He's always got that finishing killer intent. He swings from the hip, though. He's very, very hittable and definitely relies on his durability. He goes to that 1-2 down the pipe a little bit too often for my liking. He does. That's what got him knocked out. He stood in front of Vinicius Salvador. It really looked like he was starting to, shift the tide of that fight back into his side of things. And then he decided to throw a 6-piece combo, just 1-2 right down the pipe doing this thing, and got cracked. So you got to wonder about his, maybe his fight IQ, but you can't you can't deny the toughness. You can't deny the toughness. The finishing ability is definitely there. He's another one of these guys like Mullarkey where I feel like that toughness will beat some people, and they might be a little down on him in this spot because of that. Interesting that he's getting the opportunity off the loss on Dana White's Contender Series. Kleydson Rodrigues, his opponent, another Dana White Contender Series fighter, successful victim of the fade angle against CJ Vergara. Close, sketchy ass fight. Could have gone either way, but hey, that's why you like those big plus money underdogs, right? Sometimes they come through for you. This kid is 27 years old, took nearly a year off since that fight against CJ Vergara, which at this stage of their careers, I kind of like it when young hot prospects take a little bit of time. You know, they're back and sharpening their skills and working on stuff, and you expect new wrinkles when they come back into the game. This guy likes his knees, both clinch and flying. Very wide striking stance, very crisp and clean on the feet. He's really aggressive, man. He'll stand right up in front of his opponents. Rewatching the Dana White's Contender Series fight, though. Now, I was on CJ Vergara, so I already was not like the most impressed with this kid and thought maybe there was an opportunity to take advantage of him, cash that ticket with Vergara. But like looking back at the Contender Series fight, upon like my third or fourth viewing of it, I was like, man, like I'm just not nearly as impressed with this kid as I remember being. You know, when he was on Contender Series the first time, or even when I was thinking about being nervous about punching the ticket with CJ Vergara, I was like, man, but he's so good. He's so good. That fight didn't age as well as I feel like maybe it should have. I think he's still got some serious room to grow. He's very athletic. He's very big for the division. We know that can take you places, obviously. But I'm not 1,000% sold on Kleydson Rodrigues myself. Call me crazy. I think I'd rather say dog or pass in this spot. I think Shannon Ross might be the victim of some recency bias. People might be a little down on him, and he might be able to copy the game plan of CJ Vergara of just not going away and wearing down somebody like Kleydson Rodrigues, who slows down a little bit in his fights. Andrew, talk to me about this fight, man. What do you think?
Yeah, so when this fight first kind of came to fruition and the line started to come out, I was like, okay, Kleydson minus 200, minus 210, minus 220, even minus 230. I could get behind it. But it just kind of took off, and ever since then, I'm fine passing. I do think the physicality of Rodrigues is going to make a difference here. I could see his opponent keeping it close for moments, but I do think that Kleidson's just, like I said, his strength, his physicality, his athleticism is going to be too much, which will allow him to pull away. I think he is the finishing upside. I think he's the more likely to get top time. So I'm picking Rodrigues in this spot. I think his physical advantages are going to do him well here.
I'm going to be very curious to watch these guys at the weigh-ins. I want to see how they size up because, like, man, last week, I was not expecting Blagoy Ivanov to be that much smaller than Marcin Tybura. When they weighed in and faced off, I was like, oh, shit. Like, size is not always everything, but it matters. And I'll be interested to see just how big Rodrigues is compared to Ross on Friday. That's for sure. So slight disagreement from us there, but I think this should be a fun fight. And I think my guy in the chat said it best, that violence is the answer. I probably will find my way to another under bet here in some form or fashion. I think this card has a couple of decent violent bet spots on it. So this is one that I'm probably circling to look for a violence bet as well later on.
Yeah, I get it.
All right.
I can see it.
Everybody, real quick. Oh, I'm sorry, Andrew. Didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, I just said I can see it.
Okay. Seemed like you were still going to go for a minute there, so I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Real quick, everybody, we're about halfway through the show, 124 live viewers. Follow my guy, Andrew. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Please, I'm begging you. Just, it takes 2 seconds. It's the 200th episode, damn it. Give me 200 likes at least. That's what we're looking for. All right. Real quick, house cleaning. Got to shout out the sponsors. Everybody check out spectationsports.com. It's finally February. We finally have some regional show MMA coming to you. So we're going to be able to get the regional action going. They will have betting odds and things of that nature. So make sure you check out Spectation Sports. You can use promo code DIEHARD if you want to go ahead and get started over there with them. Check out the Sharp app. They have all kinds of good betting information. They've got splits. They've got the Sharp Academy teaching you how to make intelligent bets. And then, of course, the big thing is the Discord, where the pros are in there giving out their picks on a daily basis. Sharp app is really awesome, and they've put me on some crazy ass stuff. In fact, New York Islanders tonight. That's the play. that's the play. So I'm going to give away a free tip here from the Pros Discord from the Sharp app. And last, but certainly not least, check out pubsportsradio.com. We are doing free, that's right, free fight contests every single weekend. And our boy, Mr. Slaughter himself, the boss man, gave out a free $50 at the companion stream that we did last week for UFC Vegas 68. So come play in these free contests. There's cash prizes. All your favorite Pub Sports Radio MMA personalities are playing with you as well. Pick your fighter, pick your method, pick your round, and maybe you can win some free easy peasy cash. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to listen to that. We're going to move on to maybe what is my number one most excited fight for this card, man. Besides, obviously, the title fights. We're talking about Josh Culibao and Melsik Baghdasaryan. Dude, this fight is so damn good. Like, I cannot wait for Josh Culibao versus Melsik Baghdasaryan. Josh Culibao is a guy he's been hovering around for a little bit. He's been kind of floating, and people have underestimated him a little bit. He's been very impressive in a couple of spots, and we're just not really sure where to rank him. Like, he's got that toughness that keeps him in those fights. He hits pretty damn hard. He's pretty fast. He's got decent volume. Like, he checks off all the boxes, but he's just fallen short a couple times too. He's got the draw with Charles Jourdain. He's got the debut loss to Jalen Turner, which, my God, has that aged really, really well. He was in deep on 2 guillotines with Jalen Turner and found a way out of those spots, did not tap, got his way back up to the feet. I mean, with Turner, that kid's crazy. He's a special talent. It was just a matter of time. But the fact that this kid, Joshua Culibao, he lasted longer than like Brad Riddell did in a guillotine with Jalen freaking Turner, that says something, man. His other fights obviously were Shah Yilan and then the split decision win over Choi, which I still have no idea how the Choi fight didn't end before the final bell, man. They clobbered each other in that fight. One of my favorite bangers to rewatch when I was tape studying for this fight. So Joshua Culibao, a guy that I've got a lot of respect for. I'm a big fan of the way that he fights. Got a laser of a left hand, 3-inch reach advantage here in this spot. The one thing that worries me is he seems to get taken down relatively easily. Now, his takedown percentage rating actually looks decent, but when you watch the fights, they come so cleanly. If someone really wants to go with a takedown heavy game plan against Joshua Culibao, I think that would be relatively effective. But we know that ain't happening on Saturday. He's taking on Melsik Baghdasaryan, who's 7-1. And this guy, he's male Caitlin Chukagian. He does the Kia thing with every single strike. We know the judges, for whatever reason, seem to favor and like that when people go nuts every time they throw something at max effort. He puts everything into his low kicks. Andrew, it's like winding up to swing a baseball bat the way this guy hammers people's calves with those low kicks. I love it. And you can just tell Melsik likes hurting people. Like when he lands those big power shots, you're like, you like that a little bit too much, didn't you, you crazy son of a bitch? No, he's got a snapping head kick. He put Colin Anglin away, even though it was like partially blocked. Like, he got his hand up in time to get a piece of that head kick. Did not matter. Still put the man on his ass. This is going to be fight of the night, in my opinion, man. I think this fight is going to be an absolute banger as long as it lasts. We got to pick them. -110, either side. I'm sure this will be this week's Twitter battleground because it's got that close line. I am leaning ever so slightly to Joshua Culibao, I think. But I do really poorly historically in coin flip fights, Andrew. So I'm sure I'm probably not going to be actually betting this one. This is a great fireball and popcorn fight. Grab a drink, grab a snack, enjoy the hell out of this one. What are you doing on this one? Because I don't think I'm going to bet this one.
Yeah, so I think that this fight is going to be really good as well. I'm interested because on one hand, I feel like Culibao, it's first of all, he's a guy I've underrated in the past for sure, but I do realize he's a pretty skilled striker now. He's good cardio. I think he's a little bit better of a boxer than Melsik, but I think Melsik's kicks are better. So I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic. I favor Melsik early a little bit more, but then I favor Culibao late a little bit more. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you, where like I think it's going to be a really close fight to call, but I'm ever so slightly leaning to Culibao.
Okay. All right. Well, it makes me feel at least a little bit better that you're with me on the same side here with Culibao. But I mean, hey, split decision props, baby. That's what seems to happen with these one guy early, one guy late type of striking matchups. I don't hate the call that this one maybe finds its way over, even with all the heat that these guys throw. I think maybe the toughness shines. You know what I mean? Like every once in a while, you can make an argument for an under because of the offensive firepower. I think these guys just know how to hang around. I would almost be looking for an over depending on where they put that line.
Yeah, I'm looking. Let me just check really quick of what they have that at. Over 2.5 minus 170.
Wow, that's pricey.
Yeah,
I thought we were going to be sneaky.
I would lean under there at that price probably, but not a confident take.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, man, I thought we were going to be sneaky. I thought it was going to be like a 2.5 minus 110 where the money floods in on the under and just a few people are like, no, it's going over, baby. Like, but no, minus 170, that makes it rough. Okay. I'm going to lean over. I'm going to lean Culibao. I don't know if I'm going to have much investment here on this fight. It should be fun, though. Real quick shout out. We got a dono in the chat. We've got Porco Rosso saying big 200. Appreciate you, man. We absolutely appreciate you, Porco. Any donations go to supporting Pub Sports Radio and keeping the lights on here with all the free content we do. So thank you so much, my friend. And especially thank you for the shout out here for the 200th episode, because it's kind of a big mile marker for me. You guys know I'm not your classic alpha bro that's going to pretend like I'm the toughest guy in the room. I got choked up a little bit today. I was like, holy shit, like 4 years worth of work has gone into this podcast. And from where I started, where I got like 34 views on my first ever YouTube, video episode or something, to being here and doing this and having sponsors and shit, like I'm just, yeah, it got me. I'm proud of what I've done is basically, I guess, the best way I can say that. So thank you very much, Porco. I very much appreciate it. We've got thanks, man. I appreciate it. Like, I'm trying not to be a big baby about it and bring it up too much, but it's hard. people are supportive. All right. So we're about halfway through the card, everybody. Next up, we are talking about Tyson Pedro taking on Modestas Bukauskas. And Andrew, I am extremely disappointed. I had every intention of playing Modestas Bukauskas this week and fading the hell out of Tyson Pedro because I want it. I'm waiting. I am waiting for the opportunity to fade Tyson Pedro. It's something I've been wanting to do since he got back to the UFC level. I just frankly don't think he's that good. He's only 9-3. He's short on experience. I don't want to say he's a glass cannon. He's a hell of a cannon, that's for sure. But nobody seems to be able to get him past the first round. And his game hasn't changed. Like when he got TKO'd, I know it was a knee injury that really got him out of there against Shogun Hua. But when he got TKO'd in that fight, like he fights the exact same way today as he did then. I don't feel like I'm seeing any new wrinkles or anything like that. But what he does is extremely effective. He's got that stabbing teep kick to the body. He's got big step in knees. He chips away at the legs. He follows up with a big right cross. And then he's got a hell of a squeeze on him. This guy's always live for the club and sub. Folks, if you're playing Pedro, don't play knockout, play inside the distance. Like, because he at any point in time could grab a neck and go ahead and end the fight that way. Instead, he's got a little bit of tall man's defense, and that's kind of my thing. I'm waiting for somebody who's going to be able to mine the range and crack him as he backs out of range with his chin up a little bit too high. But he's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here. And Modestas Bukauskas got dropped from the UFC, went to Cage Warriors, and put 2 solid back-to-back wins together. Now he's getting a short notice opportunity to come back to the big show. And man, Andrew, sometimes when you see a fight matched up, you already know. Like, you haven't looked at the line yet. You haven't done the research yet. But you're like, I'm going to bet that guy. I know I'm going to get a good line, and I'm going to bet that guy. That's what I said when I saw that Modestas Bukauskas was getting this call up. I really thought it was my time to fade Pedro. Can't do it. I went back and I rewatched those last 2 fights, and my brain had told me that he made big improvements. My brain had told me that his overall MMA game is much better than it was when he left the UFC. And I saw some more aggression. I saw some more pace. I saw some more cardio. None of that happened. You go watch those fights. It's the exact same Sam Alvey, slow plotting Modestas Bukauskas. He's got a jab, man. That's all he does. He jabs about once every 30 seconds, and that's it. He just moves side to side and jabs and jabs and jabs. He's got a nice right hand The jab is good, but he doesn't follow it up with anything. And he is always going to be in that range of losing a close fight, even if it looks like he's controlling it, much like he did against Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, just because he doesn't throw enough. I watched his fight with Lee Chadwick on the 3x speed setting. They offered the 2x speed setting, and I save a little bit of time on most of my fights for that, and I never use the 3x because I'm like, there's no way you'll get like a clear view of what's actually happening. The timing, the speed, 3x is just too distorting. I used 3x for that one because it was so boring and they did so little over the course of that fight. Modestas Bukauskas does not do well when he gets backed up. I know he's got a puncher's chance in this spot, man, but I think Pedro is primed to just blitz right through this guy the way he has his last couple of opponents. And I don't think that Modestas Bukauskas is going to do enough to get the respect back to stop that train before it gets off its tracks. So if he doesn't throw a big right hand and clip Pedro early, that jab is just not going to be enough. Khalil was disrespectful the way he walked through that punch and then hammered Modestas Bukauskas. I think Pedro can do that too. So as much as I hate it, I'm going to pick Pedro. And I'm probably going to pick him inside the distance. What are you doing here, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm probably with you. I just think that Pedro is so much faster than him. It's one of those fights where, like, yeah, I get people are making a case of wanting to fade Pedro, and I get his last 2 fights in the UFC haven't been against great competition. But I don't think Modestas is anything special either. I do think that the leg kicks are going to be there for Pedro. I think the jab's going to be there. I think he's just too fast. I do think he finishes this fight at some point. So I'm picking Pedro to win as well.
All right. Yep. Easy one there. I probably spent a little too much time talking about it because it very much could have been a quick one. And I'm glad my guy John in the chat hits us with the vote for Pedro. You always got to get one. It's classic. We must go back to it. All right, man. The next fight we want to talk to you about is Jim the Brute Crute. He is taking on Alonzo Menifield. I am very much looking forward to this fight, man. We have not had Jimmy Crute at the UFC. It's been way too long since he's been around. I was high on Jimmy Crute, man. It's a guy I was very excited about the skill set of Jimmy Crute. He's 12-3, but he's only 2-3 in his last 5. Both of his wins are first round finishes. He's another guy that seems like a finish him early or he can't hang type of fighter. His last fight was that round 1 TKO loss to Jamal Hill, and you got to just absolutely love it, man. The current champ feeling good over here, calling Jamal Hill wearing gold for a long time, gets it done. You can't really knock Jimmy Crute from getting knocked out by the current seeded champion, but we still just don't know a whole lot about him, man. Jimmy Crute comes in here bouncing light on his feet. He's got a good stiff jab. He's got good one-time power shots, but he's got T-Rex arms. His reach is so small, man. He's got really short, stumpy arms. He's got that hard calf kick. The one thing we know about Jimmy Crute is he is a slick grappler, man. He is a good, slick grappler here. Man, I like the way that he transitions on the mat. Now, obviously, he's made some mistakes, and he gets caught every once in a while. He's a young kid. Another guy that when you look at what he's done over the course of his UFC career, like, I thought he was older. I really thought Jimmy Crute was in his 30s. You know, I thought he was 31 years old. He's only 26. He's training at a good camp. He's doing some good work here. And after taking time off with that last fight, I think he really needed it to let his body heal, develop some new wrinkles. The one thing that really impressed me was you go back to that Anthony Smith fight and the way that he double-legged Anthony Smith on one leg of his own. Like, he was completely shut down from that calf kick, still managed to power through on a single leg takedown Anthony Smith. I know who doesn't take the ball. That kind of thing. Now, Alonzo Menifield, I'm no fan of Alonzo Menifield. The guy is the UFC's freak of nature, right? Like, absolutely massive. I'm not sure how you get much more muscle on a human frame than Alonzo Menifield. Gas tank is rough. We've seen him out grinded by people like Devin Clark before, but he's got big power. That death touch is something that people have got to watch out for. And Crute's been chinned a couple times, and he's a little reckless on the feet. Menifield's got a 2-inch reach advantage. I never pick Menifield. Absolutely never pick Alonzo Menifield because I just don't think he's that good. Like, he hits hard, and that's really all he's got. But it worked out well for Francis Ngannou, too. I'm not laying -210 on a Jimmy Crute where we have no idea what he's got in the tank right now, what he's done in the offseason, and how he's going to come back in this spot. Maybe another violence bet, just because if Jimmy Crute has made the grappling advances, I can see him tapping Menifield. The knockout's going to be there for Alonzo. Probably under. I'm picking Crute to go ahead and get the win. He's obviously got the higher ceiling of the two, but that doesn't mean jack if Alonzo connects on your chin, man. What do you think?
This is the one fight I haven't taped in great detail yet, so I don't want to comment too much on a prediction, but I do think that at first glance it seems like a fight where Menifield can compete. Crute's distance striking numbers aren't that great, and he does have some power. He does have some grappling upside when he fights, but I think I actually have overrated Crute in the past. I just mentioned a couple fighters I've underrated in the past. This is so funny and embarrassing to say now, but I bet Jimmy Crute as a favorite against Jamal Hill, who's now the literal champion of the world. So it just goes to show that it happens to the best of us, man. You know, like it just was one of those things. I underestimated Hill's defensive grappling, overestimated Crute's. It never really got to that point because he kind of just clipped them early. But
yeah, that one was quick.
I think Crute's a little bit suspect defensively, so I don't hate an under here either. I think this could be a decent violent spot. Like I said, I don't want to say too much about it because I haven't fully done my due diligence on it yet, but that's kind of how I'm leaning at first glance.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely leaning on the Crute side. Again, assuming improvements, because we haven't seen them or anything like that. But grappling, I know he can tie Alonzo Menifield into knots. So it's just a matter of whether or not he can get it down there. And Menifield, to give him some props, has worked a little bit on his takedown defense. He's looked better with the cardio recently. I'm not sure how long that lasts at 35 years old. Maybe a flash in the pan that he's probably going to kind of crash and burn and go back to being the Menifield that we know and love. But yeah, man, violence for me, Crute for me. Not quite sure how I'm going to go ahead and address that one.
Cool.
All right. And yeah, so JR, I'm sure you're probably just joking. I'm going to go ahead and give you a block there, though, because don't do threats, man. There's two things that you don't do in my chat. It's spam, harassment, definitely not any type of discrimination or anything like that, hate speech. I'm going to go ahead and add threats to that list. Even if you're trying to joke or mess with me, not doing it, not having it. That's not cool. All right, everybody. We are moving the show right along. We have got Justin Tafa taking on Parker Porter. And, man, I feel a little bad. You know, the one time I made the mistake of calling him Parker Porker, and it's just stuck with me in the chat always. And I had to clear it up today on Twitter that I actually don't hate Parker Porter. They were like, dude, you always give him such a hard time. I was like, it's just jokes, man. It's really just jokes. It was a one-time thing, and I ran with it. So this is a fun fight between, you know, a couple big slobber knocker heavyweight types, and Parker Porter is king, man. I'm still rooting for the opportunity for Parker Porter versus John Jones too. Now that John Jones is coming back at heavyweight, it's a legitimate possibility. I have got to see it at some point in my lifetime. Justin Tafa, one of these weird randos that somehow made it to the UFC at 3-0. He's 5-3 now. So 2-3 UFC run. Man, nobody gets put in the UFC at 3-0. It's crazy that he got here that quick and hasn't been cut yet. But his two wins are Juan Adams, who's kind of not doing so hot in the PFL, and then Harry Hunsucker, who we know is the UFC's favorite punching bag at heavyweight. So I'm not overly impressed with Justin Tafa or his wins, but he's kind of Tukhugov light. He's got fast hands. He plods forward. He's heavy on his feet. Him getting outstruck by Jared Vanderaa was a real concern, and it validated my belief that Jared Vanderaa was a better fighter than he actually is. Him winning that fight cost me a lot in returns, because I kept going back to the Jared Vanderaa well after that point, thinking he was going to do that and fight more intelligently in the rest of his fights. Thanks, Jared. Appreciate it, buddy. But I like Parker Porter's game. Big, thick man. Those tree chunk legs and thighs, very stocky. Very high volume. Like, for a guy that's as big as he is, he's got good cardio and he's constantly putting out output out there. He's very capable of mixing in the grappling in these fights, and he is a nightmare on top of people, because when you get that 265 pounds sitting on your chest, it is really hard to move Parker Porter off of you. Some money has come in on Parker Porter. I see he's already down to plus 115. I kind of lean that way as well. The problem for me is I know Justin Tafa is younger and he's going to be improving and he's going to be getting better. Whereas Parker Porter is the guy who's older and he's going to be slowing down and he's heavier. Like, I think this is one of those level gap fights where it looks like on tape that Parker might be the guy, but Justin Tafa goes out there and gets the win and kind of gets his career back on track here in the UFC. So like, I'm straight up picking Parker Porter and telling you I'm wrong. Andrew, how do you see this fight playing out?
Yeah, this is a tough one to call because I feel like it will be close. I slightly, ever so slightly lean Tafa just because I think he's a little bit more athletic. I think he's a little bit more finishing upside. But I do think Porter's pretty good technically. I shouldn't even say pretty good. In this spot, he might be a little bit better technically. It's just one of those fights that I really don't want to be involved with. I think, like I said, Tafa's a little bit more athletic, probably a little bit more finishing upside. Porter probably a little bit more process. So I'll be watching this one from the sidelines, and I'll root you on if you end up betting anything.
I don't think I should bet anything because I'm literally saying to like fade myself in this spot. So yeah, I'm not sure which way I'd be rooting either at this point, man. Unless you guys know me, I always keep the research going throughout the week. So maybe I find something a little bit later that changes my mind. But that's literally what I did last week on Blagoy. And I was right to stay away the first time around. So this week I probably just listen to myself and I stay away from Tafa versus Porter. Now I do have to give my guy Nonstop Philly a shout out here. I am not able to check the likes in real time right now. Actually, I probably can, but the word on the street is that there's only 18 likes on the show. Come on, guys. I'm pulling it up right now. Okay, it's 56. Never mind. We're okay. I was going to be insulted that on episode 200 of my show, I only had 18 likes with 130 live viewers. So we're okay. We're better. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right. We're getting to the good stuff, man. Why every damn time? I even went back and I counted and I double, triple checked to make sure that I had all of these things correct. And somehow I duplicated Crute versus Menifield. All right. Next fight we're going to talk about is Randy Rude Boy Brown taking on Jack Della Maddalena and showcase spot, baby. Like Jack Della, there's a few guys that have made their debuts recently that we all just know. Jack Della is one of those guys. Jack Della is a bad man. And I think he's very deserving of being a large favorite here in this spot. Randy Rude Boy Brown, 16-4. He's been very solid. He's also kind of a young up-and-coming prospect that has gotten to the point of maybe being the completed fighter that he's going to be. I feel like he made some big improvements in his ground game, his grappling, his submissions. He's always dangerous and underrated there on the ground, but he is 32 years old. And his last couple fights, like he did exactly what he needed to do to win. And I can't knock a guy for that. That's a good soldier. Like if you do exactly what you need to do to win a fight, we really shouldn't be complaining about what it is you're doing. But he's also kind of like a newborn baby giraffe. Like he's got that 5-inch reach advantage here in this spot. When he gets clipped, it all just goes. He just collapses into a pile of limbs when he gets rocked by something. And we've seen it happen in a couple of his recent fights where he's gotten tagged. And I don't like the way he reacts when he gets hit hard that way. And someone like Jack Della, is going to work his way in and chip away and land a big shot. Jack Della, he might have the best jab in the game after Sean Strickland. The way this guy has his slick boxing, the way he rips the body, he just punishes you and then finds that kill shot. He's got those big step in knees. He pins you up against the fence and then flurries when you get hurt. The killer instinct is fantastic. 71% takedown defense rating, good rolls, good scrambles, able to get back up to his feet if he wants to. Jack Della's got it all. The one thing that we're worried about really is that range with Randy Brown, because Rude Boy does such a good job of keeping people on the end of those kicks and punches. If he controls the range, you're basically a dead man walking. There's no getting around a flow state Randy Brown. The other thing that I'm kind of not liking about Randy, though, is he can be a little cocky. And I know that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Some of the best athletes and best fighters and best gamblers, everything, people are cocky. It's fine. But he admires his work a little too much for me. When he lands like a good shot and then he kind of backs off and he does like the point thing, or even when he's still in range of his opponent where he'll just kind of Anderson Silva drop his hands down and make a face at you or something, like, Man, I think someone's going to take advantage of him doing that sometimes. There have been a few close calls already, and I think someone like Jack Della will be able to make him pay for that unless he's completely dialed in for this fight. I'm picking Jack Della. I'm not getting off the Jack Della train. I know maybe there is eventually a threshold where everybody's way too hyped on Jack Della Maddalena, and we all pay for it because he busts every single parlay on the card. I know he's stepping up in competition, Andrew, but I think this kid's the goods. I don't think Randy is the one that gets it over on him. I know he's got the skills, but I think Jack Della still manages to win. What about you?
Yeah, the thing for me here is like, I get why a lot of people are taking the shot on Randy Brown, but I just can't unsee the way he lets people get in on him on the feet. Like, I feel like Jack's going to get his chances when he kind of steps into the pocket. Randy Brown kind of lets guys do that. Even in his last fight, there's a clip I had on my phone. I would find it right now, but it wouldn't do me much good. Where, like, even in his last fight, which is a fight he won pretty handedly, like, I think it was the Trinaldo fight. He kind of steps in and throws a big left hook, and like he kind of just covered, like it didn't land. But I just feel like Jack's gonna get inside. He could go to the body. I think I just can't shake the feeling that he's gonna find Randy Brown's chin at some point when he gets inside, because Randy Brown does have some poor defensive tendencies in that spot. So I'm picking Jack, but I do see some of the concerns that everyone else sees that's betting Brown. I know he's a skilled fighter. He's long. Jack, I think he's had a couple fortunate matchups and outcomes so far. Not saying he's not good, but if the time does come, which it will, I just don't think that it's here. So picking Maddalena, no bet for me.
It sounds like you and me are very much in the same boat on that one. I realize he's human, and I do think there are people that will take advantage, especially if they keep skyrocketing him up the rankings the way that they have been. He'll get there a little too quick. His skill set won't improve as quickly as it needs to match his career trajectory, and someone will catch him. But I don't think this is the one. So I'm with you. I'll pick Jack Della as well. And I mean, man, it's never too bad if they give you like a -110. I'm not a big fan of, laying chalk on prop bets, but I do think he's going to knock out Randy Brown. I'm not laying like -140 on a KO or something like that, but if they'll give me even money or a -110 on it, maybe I'd take a poke at that.
Yeah, I get it.
All right, everybody, we've got 2 more fights for you. That's right, the big main and co-main event for UFC 284, episode 200, baby. Let's get right on into it. Yair Rodrigues taking on my guy, Josh Emmett. And I am biased in more ways than one for this one, Andrew, so I'm going to have a real hard time breaking down this fight. Yair Rodrigues is one of my most hated fighters. I say he's got a very punchable face pretty much every single time I break one of his fights down. I feel like I don't like his attitude. I know he's got a country behind him and stuff like that, but like the way he got bitchy at Bisbing after the whole eye poke situation and stuff like that went on, I just can't get around the way the guy acts and reacts and things like that. And on top of that, he's got a pretty damn sketchy record. Like if you look back at a couple of his recent fights, he had the, I don't want to call it a fluke, but the injury submission win over Brian Ortega. He got his ass whooped by Max Holloway. And then before that, his best win was Jeremy Stevens. And even go back to the Korean Zombie fight, man. Chan Sung Jung, he was getting his ass beat in that fight too. He was about to lose on the judges' scorecards. I will give him credit, though. Yair Rodrigues is owner of the bar none absolute nuts comeback of the year. Like, there is no better comeback ever than the up elbow that he threw on the Korean Zombie to win the fight in the literal last second of the MMA fight. Like, I don't think anyone will ever beat that comeback KO. It's better than the Usman KO, in my opinion. Like, I love that one. We had to slow it down and replay it 5 times to figure out what the hell actually happened, because the Zombie just crumpled and no one had any idea what hit him to drop him in that spot. Spectacular striking from Yair Rodrigues. All credit where it's due. I will give him that. He's also obviously been working on his BJJ. I mentioned the submission over Brian Ortega. If you talk to our guy, Liam Picks Fights, he absolutely lined up the fact that that is a true and actual submission. Not one that I knew about, but, attacking the joints and things like that is exactly what jiu-jitsu is. So we got to give him a little bit of credit for that. 1-inch reach advantage for Yair Rodrigues, taking on my guy, Josh Emmett. I've been screaming from the mountaintops, Andrew, for Josh Emmett to get his crack. I feel like His time is here. He's deserving of it. He's got a big run going on. Nobody wants to fight this guy. He's the hardest hitter in the division. His last loss was like a bomb war with Jeremy Stevens back in 2018, which shit, that happens. And he's had barn burner fights with like Shane Burgos, my fight of the year, if it was just a 5-round main event or a title fight. That's the only reason it didn't crack fight of the year a couple of years back. The Danny Ige fight, the Calvin Kattar fight, like he's been fighting close and well with these big name fighters. He's got crazy explosive power, and he can throw with fight ending intent for 100 significant strikes over the course of 15 or 25 minutes. It's insane what this guy is capable of doing. The one thing is, I wish he wrestled. We know he trains at Team Alpha Male. We know he's a decent wrestler. He just don't do it. Like, I wish Josh Emmett would wrestle. If he had a game plan of coming out here and wrestling, frankly, I think he mauls Yair Rodrigues. I cannot get what Frankie Edgar did to Yair Rodrigues out of my head. That big brother moment where they tried to really prop up Yair's career with a knockout win over Frankie, and Frankie went out there and beat the brakes off of that kid. One of my favorite fights of all time, because I kind of hated Yair by that point already. So it was an easy one to cheer for Frankie that night. This is a closely lined fight. Very competitive. Josh Emmett has the respect of the bookmakers. Minus 160 Yair Rodrigues, plus 140 Josh Emmett. I'm going to be rooting my ass off for Josh Emmett because I want to see that man touch gold. I want to see him get his crack at the champion. He's 37 years old. He's not getting any younger. It's now if it's going to happen. I just don't know if he can outstrike Yair Rodrigues for 25 minutes, man. I truly don't. It's going to have to be like the big fight-stealing moments where he lands the big power shots to steal rounds. It would be if he would use the wrestling to get the takedowns and the control time and maul this man on the ground. But if he chooses to engage Yair Rodrigues the way he has engaged his last couple of opponents, I think Yair probably just pieces him up and outlands him and outpaces him for 15 minutes. I mean, you could argue that Yair Rodrigues' level of competition has been tougher than Josh Emmett's, except for maybe the Calvin Kattar fight. So it's a spot where I think I've just got to root my guy in. I don't think I can actually put any money on it. But if I was going to make a bet, it would be on Josh Emmett because I know he's always live with that knockout power, and my heart is very much invested as a fan. Maybe not the best bet to make, though. I think Yair Rodrigues is probably the side. Andrew, talk to me about this one. Do you have a pick? Do you have a bet? What are you doing on the co-main event?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting fight for me. I think that if Josh Emmett stands in front of Yair Rodrigues, he's going to get picked apart. But I think if he kind of goes berserker, gets in his face, mixes in the wrestling, he throws hammers when he comes forward, that he's very live in this fight. I really, really, really like the under in this spot. I'm not sure why it's priced the way it is. I think there is a pretty likely chance of a finish. Like I said, if Emmett kind of comes forward throwing bombs, he's going to force a fight. If he stands at range with Yair, I think he's going to get picked apart and damaged pretty bad. So I like under in this spot. Also worth noting, I don't know how much stock you could put into this, but there's some rumors swirling that Josh Emmett has an injured hip going into this fight. I think he's 37 or pushing 38 years old now. I think he's about to be 38 if I remember correctly. So the youth is on Rodrigues' side. Emmett's pretty inactive, only fights once a year. So, and you would think he would have some wrestling upside here, but he's only landed one takedown, I think, in his last 7 fights. So it'll be interesting to see if he goes for it. But I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm picking Yair to get the win.
Okay. I'm looking forward to this fight as well. And like I said, man, if I'm betting it with my heart, not with my analytical brain. I think Yair Rodrigues is probably the side. And now that I'm saying that out loud, I probably really should just bet with my brain because that's what you're supposed to do. I should just be picking and betting Yair Rodrigues in this spot. And yeah, if Josh needs a new hip, I don't think we want to be putting our money on that guy. And when he's 37 years old and he's fought once a year, long layoffs due to injury, the orbital situation, a banged up Josh Emmett would not surprise me one bit. Not even a little.
Yeah.
It's kind of been his MO his entire career.
Yeah,
all right, everybody.
He fought Shane Burgos with a torn ACL, right? And like he ripped his knee up and he won the fight. It's literally
he still won the freaking fight.
And that was in the beginning of the first round too. So that one I always look back on like, holy shit, the guy's clearly tough as nails.
Yeah, man. And that's one of the things that I can't quite get out of my head, right? Like when when you've got a guy that fights through injury that way, when you've got a guy that can just grit his teeth and go through something like that and still manage to pull off a win, injured, down on the cards, man, like that's the kind of guy I want to put my money on. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of guy I want to root for. And that's, I guess, the other thing. I should probably just leave it alone because you don't stand in front of guys that can pull that kind of shit off. Anyway, that's the breakdown. You guys know I've been a longtime fan of Josh Emmett, so I'll stop schmoozing over him. I hope he touches gold. Even if it's interim gold on Saturday, it would be a big accomplishment. I'd be happy to see him get that chance. We are going into the main event for UFC 284, everybody. And please hit that like button. Please follow my guy, Andrew Gombas, one of the sharpest guys in the game, and has gifted us with some time this evening to help us make some smarter decisions at UFC 284. We're talking pound for pound greatness, Andrew. Islam Makhachev taking on Alexander Volkanovski. One of these men has earned the moniker of the pound for pound greatest of all time. The other one has recently just become champion, but the legend growing around Islam Makhachev is enough for him to be considered inside this pound for pound conversation because we knew it was coming, right? Khabib told us, Khabib's dad told us he took the belt from everybody's favorite champion who had just sliced and diced everybody. He did it impressively by finish. Islam Makhachev is an absolute monster. 23-1, averages 3.42 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 65% accuracy. If Islam wants you down, you're going down. He's got an 88% takedown defense, so not perfect, but who is? Does really well. Obviously, a big size advantage for Islam Makhachev. Now, Alexander Volkanovski, 25-1, 1-inch reach advantage here, 73% takedown defense. And I got to tell you, Andrew, I am ashamed of myself because Volkanovski may be the one GOAT, like the one best fighter of all time that I've lost the most money trying to fade. I very regularly look at these guys that are untouchable, Usman, Conor, and I find holes in them, and I try to take advantage of a wide line. I've done it a lot. I look stupid a lot of the time trying to do it. I could just never quite wrap my brain around Volkanovski. I bet Max Holloway against him every time, except the last one. I learned my lesson, except the last one. But I bet against him on his way up. I bet against him versus Jose Aldo. Like I just could never for the life of me figure out how Alexander Volkanovski kept winning these fights. It's one of those things where like he doesn't look overly impressive doing it. But once he's in the cage, you just can't get him off you. You can't get away from him. And his IQ is off the charts. The way he utilized the leg kicks to outpace someone like Max Holloway, who nobody outpaces, like he's massively earned my respect because I've basically beat my head into a brick wall trying to convince myself that he's not as good as he is. No, he's the pound for pound king. And finally, I recognized his greatness. And thankfully, I got a couple back on his last couple fights. So, I didn't keep on throwing money in the trash bin trying to catch and get one over on him. But this is a spot where, man, honestly, if you're ever looking for an underdog, how is it not the pound for pound king? Like, I know he's moving up a weight class. I know he's going to be at a size disadvantage, but I have questioned the greatness of Alexander Volkanovski before many a times, and he's proven me wrong every single time. He gets off on proving people wrong. And he's actually one of these like short, stocky, wide guys that I think the size that he can put on moving up is going to be more than people are expecting. The problem is wrestling is like that A+ S tier talent that it takes more than one camp to catch up on somebody. The way these Dagestanis get trained, the way they've got them grappling since birth, you can't make that up in a short period of time. And I know someone like Volkanovski's been training wrestling. He's been working on his wrestling. Like, it's not just been the last 6 months or something that he finally put a wrestling camp together. But that's where I think there's levels to this game. I think it's dog or pass from a betting perspective. You've got a minus 380 in Islam Makhachev as the favorite. That's a tough price tag to wrap your brain around. This is a great spot to like anchor parlays. If you guys do full fight degenerate parlays and stuff like that, easy hedge out. on Alexander Volkanovski. If you're into that or want to lock up a middle or something like that, you can very easily do that with this plus 320 underdog price tag. And like I said, from a betting perspective, I think maybe it is a dog or pass situation, plus 320 on Volkanovski. But everything in my brain is screaming at me that Islam Makhachev is just the goods. He's just the next Khabib. He's just the next guy. He's as good as we think he is, and I should not question that. I don't know what to do here as far as a bet goes, Andrew. I mean, maybe an over. I'm not sure what the number is going to come out at. But the one thing that I still cry myself to sleep at night sometimes is when I had an under fight doesn't go the distance, Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega. And somehow with his head turning purple, they didn't stop the fight. And somehow with Ortega's cornerman picking him up and putting him on the stool, they didn't throw in the towel and stop the fight. Like, I still to this day have no idea how I didn't cash that freaking under. But that's the kind of thing that shows me just the durability and willingness to not quit that Volkanovski has. I think he can hang in there. I think this fight probably goes deep. Maybe we even look at a competitive decision, kind of the way that it was with Max Holloway. If he can just stay safe grappling, if he can get up a couple times grappling, earn a little bit of respect on the feet, I want to see a good fight. That's really what I'm looking for here, man. What are you doing? Because I need some help. I'm not sure where the action goes in the main event at UFC 284.
Yeah, so it's funny. I've actually been in the opposite boat where like I've bet on Volkanovski a ton. I had a max bet on him against Ortega, which like I never bet 5 units on a fight. Like literally probably like anywhere between 1 and 3 times a year. I had a huge bet on Volkanovski versus Ortega. I bet on Volkanovski versus Max all 3 of their fights. But I think he's up against it here. Islam, in my opinion, is the best fighter in the world, and he's bigger. I think he's got tremendous grappling upside. His top game is just tremendous. His pressure, I think he's going to break Volkanovski down. If I were game planning for Volkanovski, and I would have him going berserk from the opening bell, just getting in Makhachev's face, putting the pressure on him, looking for a knockout. I don't think he should try to – he fights so technically a lot of the time, and that works against 99% of people. I think in Makhachev, you just need to force a fight, look for the kill. And from the Makhachev standpoint, he just has to stay composed, do what he does, because I think he is going to drag Volk to the ground. I think he is going to put tremendous pressure on him from the top position. I think he's going to end up submitting him probably between the second and fourth rounds.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? With you having the much better read on Volkanovski than I have, I definitely will respect the opinion. This is a spot where, Andrew, I sometimes get a little out of pocket chasing the value, looking for a good number on somebody. And I have sworn to myself that I'm not going to bet Volkanovski in this fight. Not pre-flop anyway. Like, if I can see the tide shifting in fight and get a live bet on Volkanovski, I would love that opportunity. But man, this feels like bait. Like having the guy that the UFC is promoting, having the guy that is the pound for pound GOAT, the guy that thrashed fan favorite Max Holloway, just dangling that little plus 300 out there, it really feels like a trap. And I think you're correct, man. The one thing that I look back on and I think about, like with Khabib, can you imagine being the best fighter on the planet, the pound for pound GOAT, and knowing the guy coming up behind you is better than you? Like, Khabib from day one was like, no, not me, Islam. Like, it was always meant to be this way. And now that Father's plan truly has come to fruition, like, there's no way in hell I'm betting against Islam Makhachev. Not a chance. So I like the read. I like the look. I am picking Islam to get the win. I hope Volkanovski gives us some kind of a fight. Like I said, I may look at those overs. But damn, man, this one might just be a viewing opportunity for me. I'm looking at what the numbers opened up overseas, and it looks like predominantly the 2.5 is around the minus 165 range to go over. You're getting about plus 135 on the under 2.5. So that makes it a little tough for me, because I don't think I want to lay minus 265 on an over 2.5 in this spot.
Yeah, I hear you. And I will say I do think Khabib was better than Islam, but they're both very good in their own right.
And Islam's younger too, though. You know what I mean? And frankly, I think the difference is that Khabib never really wanted it. You know what I mean? Khabib was doing this for his dad. He was doing it for his country. He was doing it for the legacy. He fully admitted that he really wasn't into it at the end. So I think Islam has a chance of surpassing Khabib just because it appears that he has the drive to actually be the greatest. He wants to be the best, and he's got a couple of years where he's younger and has some room somehow, dear God, to improve. That'd be an interesting. You should do a video. You need to do like a breakdown on which one is better, Khabib or Islam. That would do some serious numbers.
That'd be fun for sure.
No kidding. All right, so we're picking and still Islam Makhachev is the pound for pound king come Saturday, UFC 284. Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with me for the 200th episode of the show. I know it wasn't much, but my hat gag was just a little goof to have a fun time here for the 200th episode. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Glenbot, call him the tinfoil hat, being the last hat of the day. Shout out to you, my guy. Everybody, seriously, again, thank you for the love and the support always. Really just can't say enough about it. And I hope you guys make money hand over fist on Saturday. Andrew, again, thank you so much for your time, for your friendship, for your support. You're a real dude and one of the best in the biz. Absolutely. So if you could let the people know where they can find you and what you've got coming up, any shows or anything like that, or where they can go to support you.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations on 200 episodes again. Honored to have done it. I think this is my third or fourth time on, so I've enjoyed it every time. And hopefully I'll be on for 300 and 400 too. Just keep doing your thing, man, and I'll be watching for sure. You guys can find me at Bets and Picks MMA on Twitter, Andrew Gambas Bets on YouTube. And yeah, enjoy the fights this weekend, and I'll see you guys next time.
I love it. And absolutely, man, you're what the kids would call a regular these days. So we'll definitely keep doing it together. And everybody, as usual, it's pay-per-view week. I've got a shit ton of shows coming up. So we've got the Thursday Total Takedown where we're going to go back over the card for totals, the Friday Undefeated Post Weigh-In show, everybody's favorite tinfoil cap show. Before now and then, I'm going to be making an appearance on the Couch Warrior podcast. Shout out my guy. I'm also going to be doing the prediction strike video that's being hosted over on my YouTube channel these days. And we were able to salvage it, which is awesome. It's another long form for betting. You find opportunities to invest in fighters. I bought some serious shares in Tetsuro Tiara, feeling pretty good about that one, but it basically acts as a stock market. Check that show out. I'll tweet the link, of course. So follow me at Die Hard MMA Pod if you are not already. And guys, the one thing I want to leave you with this week is just be you. Just be you. You know what? There's a lot of people out there that try to act. They try to be somebody that they're not. They try to be who people want them to be or think they should be to fit in. Just be you. You'll surround yourself with people who like you for being you, and you'll be much healthier. You'll have a much better existence surrounding yourself with supported people who actually like you for being you. Don't cave to that pressure of being something that you're not. And even if you don't necessarily go with the flow or have an opinion with the other people around you, don't be afraid to go against the grain, stand out. Just be yourself, everybody. Have a wonderful week. Love you all. Cash some tickets. And I need to go check the score on the Islanders game. Let's roll.